Morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How about yourself?
In transit, unfortunately.
I totally get it. Hopefully you're staying safe and somewhat dry.
No, it's gnarly. It's pretty gnarly over here. Coming your way soon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Monty.
Morning, Brian.
Stu,
Good morning.
thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate it.
Sure.
We'll give it a few minutes.
I'm sure there's some delays with people being out in this weather.
So I'm just curious. I'm assuming that prior to that little event that occurred a couple years ago, you guys used to always meet in person?
No, advocacy was always virtual, really.
Really? Okay.
No, we had meetings there in the chamber office in the past.
But that was
before COVID.
Before COVID, I used to attend these virtually. I mean, maybe we did both. Well, I don't know. I mean, I remember, I don't know, it's been a long time. Susan just texted and said she's trying to find the link. So I'm going to go ahead and send it to her. It's on the website, but that's okay.
We'll wait for one more, Stu, and then we'll get going.
Sure.
Thanks for your patience.
I'm just looking at the weather radar.
Always fun.
Looks kind of green out there.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. I am in between Napa and Petaluma, and it's coming your way. Pretty gnarly.
Well, I'm just looking at the weather radar. There's a giant red cloud heading towards Rio Vista right now.
Party.
I don't need to look at the radar. I just listen to it hit pound in the top of my building here since I'm on the second floor. It's pretty loud.
Yeah.
It's hard.
But see, for me, that kind of sound makes me sleepy.
Yeah,
Totally.
You know, you just want to lean your head back, close your eyes, and listen to the sound of the rain, and it's like a little lullaby to go to bed.
That's right.
All right, there's Susan's pool. There's Susan. Morning. All right, let's get going then. Apologies, I'm in transit, so I'll probably go off camera once we get going. But Stuart, Bruce, thank you for joining. This is our small but mighty Fairfield-Suisun Advocacy Committee. Before we get going, just so you know who you're talking to, we can go around and do introductions. So Brian Botari with Comcast, co-chair.
I'm Susan LeBrecht, Solano County Office of Education, also an active reservist and co-chair as well. And our committee is finally growing. We were actually added 4 more members, and we're having an advocacy council meeting on Thursday. So we're looking forward to that.
That's good news. Monty Hoover, Gillespie Abbey Carpet and Floors, as well as a Chamber of Commerce board member.
And Jared Newmeyer, President CEO of the Fairfield-Suisun Chamber of Commerce.
All right, well, I'm Stuart Bruce, Regional IT Infrastructure and Operations Manager at Solano County Department of Information Technology.
Thank you, Stu, and thank you for being here. So I invited Stu because he is running the county's broadband efforts. And as you probably know, broadband has been one of the hottest policy spaces since COVID, kind of exposed the digital divide to the masses. A lot of us knew it existed, have been working on it, but it really came into focus during COVID, how essential this service is. So a lot of counties and governments have been looking at the issue. Well over 60 billion has been invested by the state and the feds to close the digital divide. And so Stu's the point person for the county. And I thought he's doing a great job, and thought it would be good for the group to hear from him and what he's working on. So take away, Stu. Thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to share my screen because you have to enable participant screen sharing for me to do that, though.
Done.
Okay. Go. All right, so you all should see a Solano connected. All right. So any rate, about a couple years ago, you may be familiar with the term ARPA. I think it's American Rescue Plan something. I forget what the A stands for. But act, there we go. It's an act, of course, and I'm just gonna make a side comment. This is a really small group, so I might get a little off hand, but I guess it doesn't matter that we're, how many $1 trillion in debt. Let's throw another trillion on there and hand money out. But in this particular case, Solano County received, as you probably heard of the news, we received about $86 million in ARPA funds to the county. And so a couple of years ago, our chief information officer, Tim Flanagan, sent a note out to everyone in IT. Does anybody have any ideas on how to spend $86 million? So I put together a little white paper that said, part of ARPA is actually meant for infrastructure development. That would be broadband. And so I put a request in for, actually at the time, I was thinking $1 million. And then what happened was last summer, we hired Boston Consulting Group to do basically a plan, because I don't like, getting a bunch of money and then not really know what I'm doing with it and waste it, right? So it's nice to have a plan, a roadmap, a blueprint, whatever you want to call it, on how to proceed. If you're interested in seeing that study, all you have to do is look up Solano County Department of IT. You'll hit our IT webpage, and you'll see a little sideline for broadband and digital equity, and that plan is available for download there. But with that plan from Boston Consulting Group, I was able to go back to the board and actually present a roadmap of how we could have an impact on this in Solano County. That $1 million crept up to $4 million because the board thought I made a compelling case. So this is where we are today. So the first slide I'm going to show you here, part of that study that we did, we looked at broadband availability in Solano County. And this is kind of a busy slide. I also run the county mapping department, so I love maps. But basically, if you look at this slide, the green areas are areas of Solano County where there is adequate high-speed broadband coverage. So for the most part, with a couple minor exceptions, all of the cities in Solano County, Benicia, Vallejo, Fairfield, Vacaville, Suisun, Rio Vista, Dixon, have adequate broadband services for both residences and businesses. And in fact, in many of these cities, you have multiple providers. Comcast is in most of these cities, I want to say. Brian, is there a single city that you're not in?
We're not in Dixon.
Well, okay, Dixon, then I can safely say Comcast's competitor that is in Dixon, which is Astound or Wave Broadband. So they have, and of course AT&T's in Dixon as well. So there's like 2 high-speed internet providers. And then of course there's a number of smaller, I'm going to call them boutique providers like Sonic, for example, that can come in. Sonic's very selective. They only like putting high-speed fiber in where I guess they make a bunch of money. I don't really know, but they have a very select business model in Solano County where they're providing very spotty services in specific areas. But what this basically said is that the problem with broadband infrastructure in Solano County is in unincorporated Solano County. So, certain areas, if you just look at all the sort of orange and yellow covers, people out there in the rural areas really don't have a lot of choices for broadband. And especially in districts 4 and 5, which are for our supervisory districts, these are the 2 most rural districts. So that's really where the problem is for broadband. It's in the rural unincorporated areas. Now, this is another data source. This actually comes from the California Public Utility Commission, and they switched colors on me here. In this case, purple means there's adequate broadband, but see basically the same kind of picture where you'll see the rural areas really don't have adequate broadband. So what we proposed to the county was basically the county's perspective from the Department of IT. The county IT department is really internally focused on the needs of Solano County government. We have over 3,000 government employees, 27 buildings. We have a lot to do internally. So it's really not the mission of the Solano County Department of IT to really become an internet service provider. Now, there are some communities, Vallejo, most notably in Solano County, that are actually becoming sort of a municipal internet service provider. The county really didn't want to go that particular direction. So what we're doing instead is I basically got the board to approve $2.2 million in ARPA funding for us to use as match for internet service providers that are willing to extend service to the rural residents of Solano County. Comcast is one of those. I'm working with all the internet providers on where to best spend that money to leverage. And really what we're doing is, if you think of it as the old the carrot approach, right? We're sticking a big carrot out there to the ISPs that say, hey, we have money and we'd like you to do projects in Solano County as a priority to really attract that kind of investment into our county. So this is really what we're doing. Now, with that said, the county did go out and apply for a California Public Utility Commission, what's called a local area technical assistance grant. And we received an additional $500,000 to basically help us, in one respect, to help us. When I say help us, I mean help me figure out how to best spend that $2 million for the optimal result. So because of the ARPA requirements for federal reporting, we have to do RFPs, we have to monitor the ISPs with subrecipient monitoring, we have to file quarterly reports, we have to do all this basically federal overhead to spend that money. But I'm also looking, I'm going to show you this next slide. So this slide here, this is kind of showing you what we call so basically the county spends in excess of $1 million per year to AT&T to provide networking services between the 27 different buildings that the county has. So obviously the county, this is the Fairfield-Suisun chamber. So The county has a very strong presence within your region, but we also have buildings in Vacaville, Vallejo, and in Dixon. And to connect these different buildings back to the county core, we have all these various circuits. So one of the things I am going to use that basically LATA grant money is I'm going to do a little bit closer evaluation of these AT&T circuits to see if, for example, we might be able to partner with some of the local cities. So for example, in Vallejo, since Vallejo's decided to become its own internet service provider, Vallejo is building fiber infrastructure in the city of Vallejo. There's a possibility that they can run one of their fiber lines next to some of our buildings in Vallejo. And then basically all we have to do then is to figure out how do we connect Vallejo back to Fairfield. So we are looking at possibly what's known as middle mile funding to basically run a fiber trunk up I-80, for example, and basically connect Vallejo to Fairfield. The city of Fairfield is looking at, basically providing fiber to all of their utility streetlight poles and things like that. Vacaville is currently looking at building some fiber. So there's some possible synergies that we might be able to get with the cities to basically, try to save on that $1 million. So you have $1 million a year. If we could cut that expense down to $500,000 a year, we would be doing the residents of Solano County a huge favor by saving money, which is, we are government, but, we're like a business, right? And businesses like to save money. So just to bring that to your attention. And by the way, Brian, if Comcast has a solution that would save me $500,000 over AT&T, you really should talk to me, because that's just a ton of money. And of course, this is kind of a joke, right? But I remember back in the 90s, I used to run a IT department in Pennsylvania, and I do mapping, but I actually say I do computer mapping. So my board back in Pennsylvania came to me one day and said, "You do computer mapping?" And I went, "Yes, sir. That's what you hired me for." He goes, "Great. You're now in charge of all the computers in the county." And I went, "Oh, that's great." So one of the things that they handed to me was it was actually the phone bill for the county court building from Verizon, which was about 37 pages long. And I looked at this and I have absolutely no idea what any of these charges are, and neither did anybody else, because that bill would come in and someone would just sign it and they would pay it. So I actually did an audit of all the telephone lines in the building. And at the end of the audit, I actually found 24 phone lines that the county was paying for every month that nobody had a phone plugged into, right? So it's one of the jokes I have is, well, it's actually a joke, it's actually a bet with our chief technical officer, Aaron Barak, that by the time I get done analyzing and figuring out this, I'm betting that I will find an AT&T ASC circuit that we are paying like $800 a month for that nobody's actually using anymore, right? Because it's such a complex web. Anyway, it's sort of a private thing that we're doing. So the next thing I want to flip over to is I want to talk about the other part of broadband, which is basically digital equity. So digital equity really has three components. One is, can people afford to pay for broadband? So our analysis is that there's a lot of people in Solano County, mostly that live in cities, that have the opportunity to connect to high-speed broadband, but they're not doing it. And maybe that's because they can't afford to do it. In this case, what we're actually seeing is the federal government has a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program. That program provides a $30 a month benefit to help pay for internet services if you're a low-income user. Now, our analysis indicated that in Solano County, there's approximately 70,000 households that are eligible for this $30 a month benefit, but only around 10,000 people are actually using it. So that what that means is if you just do the basic math, which I'm not a mathematician, but $30 times 60,000 households is $1.8 million per month that the residents are not receiving this benefit for. So if you just imagine if there was an extra $1.8 million in the economy per month for Solano County, how that might be helpful to the businesses of the chamber, right? So this is one of our big pushes, is try to figure out how to get more people connected to that benefit. The other area that's of concern is what's called device availability. So, people may have broadband or they may be able to connect to it, but they can't afford a computer. So we are doing a couple things here. Number one, our library actually has a loaner program to loan laptops and actually loan Wi-Fi hotspots to people. They have a big waiting list to get these devices. So I'll talk about this in my next slide, but we're basically pumping a bunch of money into the library to basically support an already successful program and try to reduce that waiting list. We're also working with the Area Agency on Aging. We actually just received a state allotment. We actually have a closet right now in one of our buildings with 1,748 iPads connected to internet service that are meant to be given out to senior citizens in Solano County. So we're working on that right now. We also have another program where we're getting approximately 300 Samsung tablets that again have internet service that are designed to go to clients of Meals on Wheels. So that's a lot of hardware to give out to people, which is pretty cool. The third area is what's called digital literacy. So say you have broadband and you have a computer, do you actually know how to use the technology? So we are working with the Workforce Development Board and some other local nonprofits to try to provide some additional training classes for digital literacy. And then my next slide here, this is an interesting slide here. There's actually two things this slide is showing. One, it's showing the percent of population enrolled in food stamps. So those are basically the thematic colors that you see here. So if you notice, if we come down here to Vallejo, we have a deep red area of Vallejo where we have a lot of people on food stamps. In Fairfield, we have some darker areas, and in Vacaville, we have some darker areas. Not so much in the rural unincorporated areas of Solano County. But anyone who's getting food stamps right now is eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program. These blue dots indicate households with no internet access. And again, you'll see a large concentration in the cities. So this sort of data helps drive our decision on when I'm looking at how do I address digital equity. I'm not going to be going up into Pleasance Valley, for example, and wasting a lot of money in Pleasance Valley are some of these rural areas like, say, for example, English Hills. So English Hills doesn't have good broadband infrastructure, but if you've ever driven in English Hills, the people up there, they're not poor, right? They're not eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program. They just want a high-speed fiber. And of course, for our ISPs, knowing that there's fairly well-to-do residents in that area, it's a big attraction for the ISPs to go there, because if you run a fiber line to $1 million home in English Hills, you can almost guarantee that they're going to want high-speed internet, they're going to want home security, they're going to want cable TV. So they're basically going to order everything on your menu. If they had the option to buy it, they would do it. So we took this information to our board, and basically a board has allocated a very robust budget. We have $1.8 million to dedicate to digital equity. What we're doing with that money is we're going to spend $900,000, and we're going to put what I call boots on the ground. I'm currently almost ready to sign a contract to bring in a team, basically 2 full-time people and a bunch of part-time, what I call digital navigators, to basically kind of run around the community, go to meetings and community centers and try to get people signed up for the Affordable Connectivity Program. We have a $150,000 marketing budget. So if the chamber has any businesses that have marketing specialists, you might want to have them contact me, because I'm definitely going to have some money to spend on marketing. I'm also setting aside $250,000 to give away to small nonprofits in Solano County. So these are target communities I'm trying to reach to get them signed up for the Affordable Connectivity Program. So what's the best way for me, Stuart Bruce, to reach the Hispanic community in Fairfield, for example? Well, I don't speak Spanish. So the idea would be I would try to give some money to some nonprofits that are already connected to these pockets of stakeholders that I'm trying to reach. Same thing with homeless people. How do I reach homeless people? Well, I'm going to try to fund some of the homeless organizations, the shelters that are working with that, or some food banks, for example. the Powell Center in Fairfield, for example, is probably going to be a recipient of some of this funding. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the library, we've channeled $500,000 to the library to basically have them triple down on their current program for devices and computers. So that's basically what I'm up into the county, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great presentation, Stuart, and thank you so much for coming and doing that today. I actually just wanted to kind of make more of a comment. So the Fairfield-Suisun Chamber of Commerce represents a lot of the nonprofits that you're referring to regarding homelessness. We also have all of the chambers within the community are also members. If you're looking for marketing, we would be happy to work with you to put something together to get out to our network, which again could then bleed into other areas of our community.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, one of the big project items for our digital equity effort. So I kind of came up with a name for our group, and I do get it mixed up sometimes. I'm not sure if I'm dyslexic or getting old, but it's either Connected Solano or Solano Connected. So one of those two variations, I kind of go back and forth between the two. But one of the things that we're going to do is, and this is actually part of the Boston Consulting Group study, is we are going to put together what we call a Connected Solano Digital Equity Coalition. So we will be inviting all of these various groups, libraries, schools, nonprofits, internet service providers, city governments, to kind of get together and sort of figure out what can we do. Because one of the big sales pitches that I made to the board was, let us have this money now from ARPA, which is instantly available for us. We can put together a community coalition to address these issues. There is millions and millions and millions of additional funding coming down the pipeline to support digital equity projects. So really what we're doing by investing money now, building our coalition, funding some of these nonprofits to start working on some pilot programs. When the other funding becomes available, my plan is to swoop in and snatch that money up as quickly as possible, because we are prepared to actually go after the funds, and we have an environment developing ideas on how better to improve our community. So connecting with the chamber is important.
Absolutely. And if you identify ways that we can help and coalesce with you, then we are happy to do so.
Excellent.
On another question, you indicated that this is for broadband. So are you looking to bring actual fiber or just broadband speed?
All right. So again, the $2.2 million that we have for broadband is really meant for number one, unincorporated Solano County. Number two is we're going to work with existing internet service providers. So that could be a combination of additional fiber builds. It could be fiber to a neighborhood and then coax to the home. In some cases, it could be wireless. So if you look at certain areas of the county, and I like mentioning, you guys know where Collinsville is?
Collinsville?
Collinsville.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Susan, you're shaking your head.
I don't know.
You don't know where. See, you don't know where you know where you've heard of Bird's Landing?
Yes.
Okay, so Collinsville is
Okay.
after you pass Bird's Landing, another several miles is Collinsville, right?
Okay.
So if you look at all the homes in that area, I'm going to say all 13 of them, right? They don't have the best high-speed internet, but is any internet service provider in their right mind going to spend $3 million to run a fiber line down Bird's Landing Road to connect 13 people? I don't know, Brian, you could answer that. The question.
The answer is no. The answer is no.
No, it's just not affordable. So unlike if you go back to the 20s and 30s, unlike the rural electrification project, where you actually had to run a wire to every home in America for electricity, there are other ways to get internet to these really isolated pockets. So in those cases, wireless is a viable option. You're not going to run fiber everywhere, but when you reach a certain density where it really there has to be a business case where it makes sense to run fiber, and so there has to be enough customers there to do it. So it will be a little bit of a mix in Solano County.
point of clarification to Jared's question. So, broadband is defined by speed, and fiber is a means of delivering broadband. So we will be mostly doing only fiber builds for these new projects that we apply for. And I imagine many of the other providers will too, but there's multiple ways to get to broadband speeds. So that's what we're shooting for.
Good to hear, Brian, because obviously that is, the future, right? And so I'm glad to hear that the ISPs will be moving in that direction.
Yeah, it's just that from the county's perspective, and I think from the ISP perspective, getting to that, what you'll hear this term called last mile funding. And maybe at some distant future, we will run fiber down to Collinsville, but I doubt it, right? So any other questions?
Stuart, thank you for your presentation. Very thorough and very educational. My question, I guess, I thought, and you mentioned something about Vallejo, City of Vallejo was doing something in regards to this, but I thought the City of Fairfield was in discussion of, I don't know, becoming a broadband provider as well, or supporting the program in some fashion with some of their ARP money as well. Is that the case? You guys working together? Or?
Well, we're definitely, working with all of the cities. I think that the City of Fairfield hasn't finally decided on what they're going to do, right? So the City of Fairfield, to my knowledge, did receive an allotment of probably around 10 or 11 million dollars in ARPA funding to look at broadband. What they're doing now is they're actually mapping both their sort of above ground and underground utilities, so they have a better idea of where their infrastructure is. They have a need to be able to communicate, for example, to all of their traffic signals in town. Obviously, they have sewer and water infrastructure, so when they're building new pipes, they can lay conduit for fiber. But I do not believe at this point that Fairfield has decided to become an internet service provider, build a municipal area network similar to what Vallejo is doing. What I have heard Fairfield talk about is possibly putting up some free community Wi-Fi access points. So there are obviously certain neighborhoods in Fairfield that have a high preponderance of low-income residents, where if you were to build a wireless mesh across those communities, the City of Fairfield could really provide free internet to those residents through basically Wi-Fi. So that is one option I know that they're looking at. This is also something, for example, that Vallejo is looking at, putting up basically a Wi-Fi mesh. Now, if you guys probably read more of the Fairfield papers than I do, but if you have, I've become aware that there have been some concerns about certain areas, like, for example, a McDonald's that offers free Wi-Fi has a tendency sometimes to attract homeless people, right? So you have these homeless people, and maybe they're not and there's different kinds of homeless, right? By the way, mapping homeless is another project of mine, housing and homeless. But you have different kinds of homeless people. So I guess you have the kind that I see around the county admin building that are pretty destitute, but then you also have people living in their cars, and things like that. They might congregate in these areas where you have Wi-Fi hotspots. So I've actually noticed some resistance to this idea of free Wi-Fi. But if you build a Wi-Fi mesh across the entire city, right, then you're avoiding these concentrated locations where people are trying to get Wi-Fi. So we are definitely interested in partnering with the cities. Now, in the case of Vallejo, this would be an interesting project in Vallejo, where as Vallejo builds out their internet service, we can actually partner with the city of Vallejo. So let's say, for example, the city of Vallejo is going to provide services to a low-income neighborhood in Vallejo. Due to our digital navigator team and some of our marketing monies, we could actually help the city of Vallejo market services to low-income residents and have them sign up for the Affordable Connectivity Program, but use the City of Vallejo network. So basically, the City of Vallejo network would benefit because they'll get a new customer with that $30 a month plan. So we're willing to do that with Fairfield as well. And then I'll just state the next obvious thing is that, as I mentioned, all those millions of dollars that are coming down the pipeline, the people that are giving that money away, they want to see partnerships. They want to see the county and the cities working together with nonprofits and the schools and the libraries, a cohesive community representation. That's a much more attractive group to give money to than just like, well, Stu and the IT department could use a couple extra $1 million for his pet project. No, I mean, we got to be doing stuff and spending money that's helping the community and that the community supports and everyone's behind it. So working with the cities is paramount to that future success story.
Well, I would think that also you mentioned the school district getting involved with something like this, because I know during COVID when they were doing classes online, teachers, administrators were having issues because there was lots of students that either didn't have access or poor access to be able to participate in class. So, I mean, I know we're not in that situation again, but those students that don't have access or poor access have a tough time then even keeping up with the class programs and projects and homework and stuff because they don't have access to the good source of internet.
Well, we're definitely working with schools, but there have been scenarios where the school ends up giving the school student like a Chromebook with the Wi-Fi hotspot, right? Mm-hmm. So they take that back to their house, and then everyone in their family is using the school Wi-Fi hotspot, right? So it's sort of interesting, and of course the schools have access to other funding sources that can actually put hardware devices into homes, right? So definitely the schools are a really important partner. Plus, in terms of reaching people, for marketing purposes, the idea of giving every student in Solano County a brochure to take home to their families about signing up for the Affordable Connectivity Program, that'd be a great way of reaching a lot of people effectively, for example. So the schools are a very important player in this space.
Yeah, Monty, we're still dealing with that. We have programs that are 100% independent study kind of programs.
Right.
And it's not just, students that are K through 12. These are students that are, 20, 21, 22, 24 that are still working on their high school diploma. And yeah, we have to give them a hotspot. And yeah, just like Stuart said, everybody, jumps on that hotspot.
Yep. So Susan, when you say you were at the Office of Education, is that so like the Solano County Office of Education?
Solano County Office of Education. Mm-hmm. So
we definitely.
So juvenile hall, you mentioned juvenile hall, so those are our students in juvenile hall. So, and that's quite a challenge too, because even though you guys might have, the infrastructure, we still can't access just because of the nature of the students. I wish there was a way to have better controls of what they're accessing. And simply, we tried everything, so it's just you can't even access anything on the internet. Yeah,
well, we've definitely been. I've had some conversations with some of your colleagues at the Office of Education, so we'll be inviting them to be on our Digital Equity Coalition. We're also talking to the Solano County Community College. I recently became an adjunct at San Joaquin Delta College, so hopefully getting some connections there for the eastern part of the county. So
great. So you're probably talking to Zach, our IT guy. He's amazing. Yep, he's really good.
Yeah, I've been kind of like, to be honest with you, I have $4.5 million to spend on this project. And the only thing I spent so far is the $500,000 I sent to the library. So I've been kind of like sitting on a pile of cash, mainly waiting to get my team in, my program manager, my digital navigator coordinator, because I want to bring my team in, really take a close look at what we're doing and then start spending money. So I'm not just out spending money willy-nilly. And of course, with the ARPA funds, I have until the end of, I believe, 2026 to spend the money. So I'm Scottish. I'm a little bit of a tightwad, so I just want to make sure that we've got our staff on board, up to speed, build the coalition, let's talk to the community, and then we'll spend more of the money that we have, but we're just not out willy-nilly spending money. So
Well, I'm sure, Stuart, that once you open the floodgates of spending, it'll just kind of start flowing.
oh yeah, and like I said, I'm really looking for a lot of additional money, just for the consortium. For example, Public Utility Commission actually has a grant for building regional consortia, so I'd be remiss to not stick my hands in that. I actually just applied for a $25,000 grant yesterday from the Michelson Foundation, and I'm looking to spend that $25,000 to do survey work. So one of our neighbors in Sacramento are involved. They already have a coalition. They're involved in this, and they're doing an internet survey for people who aren't on the internet. Like, how do you reach people via internet survey that aren't on the internet right now, right? So what I'm looking at doing is, with this $25,000, if I'm lucky enough to get it, is actually go house to house in certain neighborhoods. So I'm targeting 3 neighborhoods. Of course, I live in Trilogy in Rio Vista. It's a 55+ community. We have 3,000 homes here. A bunch of people either aren't on the internet or they're not taking advantage of the Affordable Connectivity Program. So in trying to understand that audience, I'm just going to hire someone to go house to house, knock on doors and go, are you on the internet? What service do you use? Why aren't you on the internet? Do you know about this plan? And really try to get some ground-based intelligence. I'm looking at hitting a Hispanic community in Fairfield and then an African-American community in Vallejo. But what I want to do is I want to hire people from those neighborhoods to actually do the surveys for me. Because if you imagine me, Stu Bruce, heading down to the inner city Vallejo and knocking on doors, probably not going to get the best results from a survey. So anyway, so I really need some more information so I can better allocate those funds for the maximum impact possible.
And we're gonna help Stu spend some of his money too, for sure. He talked about the local match. I will say, I have counties in the North Bay that are all in some form of broadband planning and activity. Stuart's efforts have been by far the most comprehensive and advanced in the North Bay, particularly with this digital equity focus. And then also what they've done really well is identify actual projects in unserved areas that are actionable for ISPs to apply for grants for and provide a local match to incentivize us to do so. And breaking news, we're going to be applying for 2 of those projects in this next round of state grant funding. And we've never, as Comcast, have never applied for state funding before to do a broadband build. And Solano's 2 of the, I think, 7 projects we're going to go for because of the great work they're doing.
All right. Any last questions?
No, Stuart, I actually sent Zach Moore just the email. He's our IT guy, to make sure he is connected with you.
Yeah, I think I met with him and a couple other folks. And like I said, we did that study last summer. But I've been dragging my feet because, when I start the Digital Equity Coalition, I want to make sure I have the staff to manage it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to get a, lame start. I want to come in like bang. We got the staff lined up and a good program, and not
right,
piss away the money or get people like, that's kind of a lame effort they're doing. No, we like boom, we're ready to go. And like I said, we have 2 full years of funding once we get rolling. So
yeah, and definitely, as Jared said, the chamber would love to be part of this coalition.
Yeah, we're counting on it. And Jared, it would be helpful to me if you might share some of your, who are some of the other chambers in Solano County that I should be talking to, so that would be helpful.
No, absolutely, 100%. And if there's anything that we can do to help, maybe, because I'm kind of thinking we should probably facilitate more of these types of meetings.
Yeah, I'm starting to go to city councils and presenting. I did one presentation to the city of Fairfield. And again, I've been kind of dragging my feet a little bit because I want to get my staff on board. You know, we have the blueprint, we have a plan, you know, have the money. So just a matter of sort of executing it. And unfortunately, the wheels of county government move, you know, kind of like slowly. So, you know, just the bureaucracy. And you know, I think the long-term goal for the digital equity effort for sure is really try to spin off a nonprofit organization. So that coalition really is going to be a fledgling board, because really it's an outward facing mission from the county. It's not really the mission of the Department of IT to train the entire county on how to use computers and give them computers. You know, some things I'm trying to do is like e-waste, for example. You know, the county gets rid of 1,000+ computers every year that are like 3 years old. There's really nothing wrong with them, you know, but they're not up to the latest standards. So we have this sort of refresh program. And right now what we do is we basically shred them and pay someone to haul them away. So if there's a way that I can rechannel that e-waste to not me, because I have nothing to do with it, but to another nonprofit that could process that and actually give those or sell them for really cheap back to the community, that's another thing that we might be able to do. So I'm really trying to look at these different ways that we're handling our business that could be a benefit. But at the end of the day, the IT department doesn't want to be in charge of it, you know, because it's not really part of our core mission, you know, which is to take care of our government staff workers.
We actually have a new member who just started with us, and they are an e-waste company, and they do all of it at no charge.
Well, I'm sure there's companies out there that would love all of our, you know, I want to basically follow the model. There's a program down in the city of Oakland, I think it's called Tech Connect, that basically processes all the e-waste from Oakland and other cities in that area, refurbishes them. They have a little storefront. They basically, for like $50, they will sell the computers back to low-income people and actually provide training courses. So I'm looking at setting up something like that, not just like, here, take all my e-waste and I don't want to deal with it again. I want the e-waste to go back to the community in some fashion. So then if you multiply that program by all the cities, for example, that's a lot of computers that we have that could be refurbished very cheaply. It's just that the Department of IT doesn't want to become a computer reseller, you know.
Well, you know, to your point, I don't know if the you know, folks here today are aware of this, but the Best Buy here in Fairfield, and I'll be the first to admit that they're not members of the chamber, so I'm not, you know, trying to promote or any of those kinds of things, but they've recently decided to switch gears, and they're going to be a refurb center only. So
Really?
anything that's open box or anything that has been damaged and has had minor repairs will be sold only at the Fairfield facility. They will not be doing retail sales whatsoever. My only point in bringing this up is this could be a great conversation in getting Best Buy on board by maybe coalescing with them to see if we can get a program together that helps to, you know, provide services to our community throughout Solano County.
Well, hey, if you have a contact there, I'd really appreciate you sharing that with me.
So based on what you had said, or I'm sorry, based on what I had said earlier, they're not members of ours. So unfortunately, I don't have any contacts, but I'm sure we could try to get a hold of maybe a corporate office and maybe talk about, I mean, I'll be honest with you, coming from the chamber, we're probably not going to get very far. But if we were to work with you and then you coming from the county of Solano, going to corporate office with Best Buy, they may be more apt to take that call and actually have a discussion.
Sure.
About,
well, Jared, I would say is you need to make them a member of your chamber.
I would agree. Although the problem is that, especially for large organizations such as Best Buy, is oftentimes I usually can't get past frontline staff. And so the decision makers are really difficult to get in front of to have these types of conversations. Once you're in, you're good. It's just getting to that point that can be rather difficult.
Well, we have a similar problem, for example, and to mention two of Brian's sort of competitors, not exactly, but If you look at, say, Verizon and you look at T-Mobile, right? So I've tried to reach out to Verizon. It's like almost impossible to connect with anybody there because how do you find someone? Now, T-Mobile, on the other hand, they have this nice lady, Dr. Angela Hemingway, dedicated to digital equity efforts in the western part of the states. She returns your phone calls and sets up a meeting and is very helpful. So, as a result of that, it's actually hurt Verizon, because guess who the library just signed a contract for $500,000? Was it Verizon, who they can't get a hold of anybody? Or was it T-Mobile, who showed up in person at the library? They went with T-Mobile. It's like a no-brainer. So this is why when you look at Comcast, who am I more likely to prefer to deal with? Brian, who's like always, around and, obviously bugging to some of the supervisors too, or am I going to deal with, some like company that doesn't have the time of day for me? I have a hard time getting a hold of them. They don't want to talk to me. I'm going to go talk to someone, who's cooperative.
Correct. No, I completely get that. Although I do think that, being a patron of Best Buy myself from time to time, obviously, I do think that they probably would want to be involved in something like this. It's just how to get there and figure that out. But I'm definitely happy to start having discussions and seeing what we can do to try to make that happen.
Hey, that's a great bit of information for me to know about. So.
Yeah, the new organization that we're partnering with, aren't they part of their services to help you connect with companies like Best Buy?
I don't know, but I could absolutely ask about that. Sure. I mean, that's not a bad idea, Monty. We can definitely look into that.
Right. Hey, again, Stuart, thank you, Susan and Brian, for putting this together. I've got my team here is waiting for me on a meeting now, so I need to escape and go try to make more money, man, so I can keep doing this stuff. So.
All right. Well, you guys all have
Thanks,
a great day.
Thank you.
Stuart, appreciate you being here, and thanks for making the case for why big companies should invest in government and community affairs.
Sure.
I agree. Any other questions from the team? We can let Stuart go.
I think I'm good. I mean, obviously,
All
there's
right.
more.
Appreciate it, buddy.
You can take them offline.
All right. You guys have a great day and try to stay dry.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.